The theory that the democratic think tank Inter-American Dialogue controls the São Paulo Forum was put forward by my friend José Carlos Graca Wagner in the early 1990s, a time when no one in Brazil, much less he himself, had a clear view of the globalist scheme in action in the U.S. Dr. Wagner was a pioneer in investigations about the São Paulo Forum, but he was as far from reality on this particular point as one could be, interpreting the actions of the dialogue in terms of U.S. national interest, believing that the support given by that entity to the Latin American left aimed to contain the flow of illegal immigration that threatened that country's internal security. After a decade and a half of consistent democratic leftist support for open borders to illegals, this hypothesis must be considered only an error long since surpassed. Digging it up again is to let oneself be hypnotized by a ghost. That there was collaboration between the dialogue and the forum cannot be denied. At least one discrete meeting between representatives of the two entities took place in May 1993. The fact was completely hidden by the major North American media and only appeared in the Cuban edition of Granma on the 5th of that month. Since last year I had received from Dr. Graca Wagner's archives a partial clipping of the article, I asked an assistant to look for the full text at the Library of Congress. The complete Granma collection was there, except for the May 5, 1993 edition. The same gap was observed in several other libraries, all supplied by that central organism. Coincidence or not? The then director of the Latin American section of the Library of Congress was the same person who had organized the meeting between the dialogue and the forum 15 years earlier. As compromising as this episode may be, one should not exaggerate its importance, because after it many other direct contacts took place between larger globalist agents and representatives of the São Paulo Forum, and even of the FARC, so that the 1993 conversations can only be seen today as the vague beginning of a flirtation that stabilized as a marriage a long time ago. Moreover, these contacts involved members of the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, an all-powerful entity of which the Inter-American Dialogue is only a relay substation. I explained this in an article published here on June 5, 2006. Far from representing an expression of American national power, although it uses it for its own purposes, the globalist scheme that protects the radical left and the narco-trafficking in Latin America has the declared purpose of breaking U.S. hegemony, facilitating the transformation of the UN into a world government. The election of Barack Obama, forced through absolute control of the media that deprived the electorate of essential information about a highly suspicious candidate whom they would never have voted for had they known who he was an important stage of the process. All measures taken by the president since his inauguration are perfectly consistent with the goals of his mentors: to weaken the U.S. militarily, destroy the national economy through runaway public spending and inflation, dismantle nationalist resistance, especially the religious right, isolate Israel, favor the Islamic ascendancy, and protect by all means, including the most obviously immoral, the radical left in Latin America. Never has a U.S. president, with the modest exception of Jimmy Carter, been so consistently an enemy of his own country. His most recent initiative in this regard could not be clearer, condemning Honduras in a session where the accused party had no right to defend itself. The OAS consolidated itself as a law firm serving Castro-Chavismo, narco-trafficking, and everything that can exist that is most anti-American south of the Rio Grande. More realistic than the enlightened chatterboxes of our media, still and always engaged in camouflaging the actions of the São Paulo Forum under tons of anesthetic evasions. The Honduran press went straight to the point. It reported that, thanks to Barack Obama's good offices, the São Paulo Forum took control of the OAS.